Hello everyone, my name is Jim Garrity and this is a rim lock. A rim lock fits to one edge of a door. It supports the door handles and it enables them to open and close the door. It also contains a door lock which can be operated from either side of the door if you have the correct key. The keyhole is special. It allows the key to be inserted into the lock either way up. Because this lock can be fitted to any of the four edges of the door, it could be installed either way up. People expect their keys to go into a lock with the blade of the key pointing down. Because this lock can be installed either way up, the keyhole is built to accept the key either way up. We need to look inside to see how the thing functions. I haven't seen inside one of these. I've seen the rim latch but not the rim lock. Let's turn the rim lock over. Right, let's take the back off of this rim lock. I have my little screwdriver here. Here's the back, and that's coming off. And we have lots of dust. There's the back of that two-way keyhole, which we will be having a look at in a moment. And here's the internals of the lock. Let's take the bits out now. So we start off with the latch. And this piece is the part that pushes the bolt backwards and forwards, and it's painted in at the moment. It's stuck. Right, let's see if we can break the bolt out of the body of the lock. You can see the bolt is here and it's well painted in, and I'm hoping just a little bit of pressure at this end and that should break the paint bond. What I don't want to do is break the casting here. It's a brass casting. In fact, I can see that it's cracked along here now. There we go, look at that. It's come away. So if I work that up and down, that should get the bolt moving and hopefully out of that. Oh, in fact, there it goes. And there is the bolt. That's all the parts now from the rim lock housing. I need to remove the paint from the body of the rim lock. The door this lock is a part of is about 100 years old. When something is that old, the paint could be lead based, so you've got to be careful. I have the workshop door open, a mask over my face and gloves on my hands. I'm going to remove the paint by scraping it off, but first it needs to be softened using the blast from a heat gun. Scrapers, screwdrivers and wire brushes all play their part to get the rim latch body back to metal. I finish off using pads of steel wool. If you look closely, you will see where I've left some specks of paint on the metal. This rim lock body is going to be varnished once clean. The steel wool finish and the paint flecks will allow the rim lock to look its age. All the parts of the rim lock have now been cleaned and replaced in the lock body. I've screwed the lock body down to a piece of wood. You can see there's two screws up here, and there's also a screw here which is keeping the latch in place. I've had to do that because this spring here, which is under compression, wants to throw it all apart. There are two main sections within the rim lock. Along the bottom here we have the latch, and the latch mechanism is operated by the door handles or the door knobs. The top part along here, this is the locking mechanism, and this is operated by the key which comes through the keyhole which is situated here. Let's talk about the latch mechanism first. If I put this square piece of shaft here in the hole, now if I turn the knob anti-clockwise, then you see this this lug will act against the plate at the end of the latch. It will pull it, and the latch will come out of the keeper plate, which is in the frame of the door, and that will allow the door to open. And you see, as it comes in this direction, the latch is pulled, the lever comes up, and it compresses that spring even more. So that spring wants to push this away. So as I relieve the pressure from here, that spring pushes it down and it pushes the latch back out. Now if I turn this clockwise, so the knob is now being turned clockwise, The long lug doesn't push against anything, that's free under there. The short lug now pushes against the plate. So if I now go, now I've got to be careful because it's, so that goes like that. Because it's all apart, it's not operating very nicely. Now you see that small lug is pushing the plate up. The lever really wants to come off. The lever goes up, the spring gets compressed and the latch is pulled out. If I now release the tension on the knob, the spring pushes that plate down, the lever returns and the latch is pushed out again. That's how the door handle part or the latch part of the lock works. This rim lock, although it has a locking mechanism here, I haven't got the key to go with it to operate the locking mechanism, which is a bit of a shame. I went down to our local locksmith and what do you know, the blank keys are still available. Ta-da! And there it is. Now this key fits into the keyhole, either that way round or that way round. Now at the moment, the actual tab here is huge and it's far too big for what we want. It must be used on different locks, and this particular lock doesn't need such a wide tab, so I'm going to have to cut that down, but I've got to work out the lengths. Now if we put in the deadbolt, now that deadbolt goes backwards and forwards, and the key, the end of the key that comes through the keyhole needs to fit in this little section here. So I think what I'm going to do in the first instance is cut the key such that when it comes through this hole, it comes to the bottom of that cutout, and it should be around about the same in this top hole and the top cutout. So that's what I'm going to do now. Lop off the end of this key blank down here, so when it comes through the hole it fits into these two slots. I mark out and hacksaw through the top of the blade. Push the key into the keyhole slot and find I can't turn the key as this part of the blade fouls against the edge of the keyhole slot. I mark and cut the blade once again. The key can start to turn clockwise now, but the blade is still a little long and knocks against the brass casting just here. I file the blade a little more until it clears. I've now filed back this surface so it misses that part of the deadlock that it was bumping against. If we bring in the lock housing, push the key in, and now you see it misses just there. Now it only just misses. I didn't want to make too much slack, and I can always file more off. Anyway, so it goes past that part of the deadlock. It now engages into the groove. If I carry on turning, it pushes the deadlock to the lock position and it retracts it again as well. If we put the key in the other way round, turn it this way, it engages into the deadlock, locks the deadlock and also unlocks it as well. So that part is working. Now let's put the levers in position. So we have lever 1 and lever 2. Oops, go get it in the right place. Right, now we've got to remember that the spring will be pushing up here normally. So if we put the key in the keyhole, the key comes round and it lifts the levers first. It engages into the deadlock. The lugs of the levers are now out of the way, so it allows the posts to go past, and then as the key goes over centre and starts to come down again, the levers will close, locking the deadlock in the locked position. So these posts can't move because of those lugs. So that side of the lock is working. Let's try the other side. So we'll take the key out, put it back in again, and levers open, pulls the deadlock, locks the deadlock, levers close, locking the deadlock in the lock position. Well, that bit works. What's next? What's next is this. We're now looking at the rear of the rim lock. If I push the key all the way through, now the rear keyhole, it supports the key, and you see where it comes through, the rear of that blade that's on the key actually fouls against the side of the keyhole. So we're going to have to cut this surface back, so we need to work out how far to do that. But then it gets a little bit more complicated. We're now looking at the outside of the keyhole again on the back plate, and the thing that makes it more complicated is if we turn this plate over, there is this feature on the rear of the keyhole. Now if I put a key in the hole, we know that we have to cut this surface back to get it fitting into the keyhole. You see I've scratched a line on the bottom of that blade, so we need to bring it back a little, but then we have to shape this rear edge to fit around this feature. And this is a part of the lock. I assume that different locks have different shapes here. That's interesting. I've been scratching my head trying to work out how I can do this. What I need to discover is the distance from this face here, which is the inside face of the rear panel of the lock, to the top face of the keyhole. Now if I can discover the distance between here and here, that's the distance which goes from this side of that feature on the key to the forward edge of the blade. I think the easiest way of finding that dimension is if I put the back plate back onto the lock body, the housing here, so that's in position there. I can now use my vernier calipers through the keyhole and touch the rear face, which is now going to be at a slight angle, but I don't think that's going to be much of a problem. So I'm just touching it there. If I now push the calipers down, I'm using it as a depth gauge here, and that gives me a measurement of 17.4 millimeters. I've now scratched my line on that forward edge of the blade, 17.4 millimeters from this edge here. Right, let's go cut it. I use a full-size hacksaw, file flat and then deburr. Pushing the blade of the key against the brass feature, I scratch around its shape. Holding the key in the vise, I saw and filed the blade to shape. I perform the same process on the next ridge of the feature, producing the second slot. Of course, the key must be able to operate the lock from either side of the door. What this means is the shape we've just cut onto this side of the blade, we now need to cut onto the other side as well. I cut the slots with an hacksaw and then file to the final shape. We're looking at the inside of the back plate where these features are, that is a part of the lock, and the key has got to be cut to fit around them. If I put the key in this lower lock here, you can see that that side of the blade fits nicely around those ridges, and if I take this out and put it in the top one, they also fit in around the ridges. If we now put it in from the other side of the plate, this is now the other side of the blade which has been cut, and you see that clears there, and it also clears here as well. So this key is now finished. Well, there you go. I've just finished cutting my first ever key. I was surprised how much metal had to be cut off the blade to get the key working. The rim lock is now finished. The body is varnished, the internals greased, and I suppose it's time to check the key works. Fingers crossed now. The rim latch and the key are both finished. The rim latch has been varnished, everything's been lubricated on the inside and it's been put together. The key is here, this is done, and now the proof of the pudding, as they say, is in the eating. Locked, unlocked. Locked, unlocked. Does it work the other way round? Locked, unlocked, and locked, unlocked. Ta-da! I declare this project finished. Well, we've serviced the rim lock and we made a brand new key for it as well. Could you do this sort of thing? Of course you can. And with that, this video is at an end. Take care everyone, and I'll see you next time. Could you do something like this? Of course you can.